If you're a real estate agent and you're tired of cold calling, door knocking, and spending money on ads, then subscribe to this podcast. We discuss leveraging the power of YouTube for your real estate business and how these strategies earned us over $1 million in GCI our first year in real estate. My name is Levi Lascsak and my partner is Travis Plumb. Let's get started. Okay. Well, let's get started because I know your time is very valuable and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And we are joined by Michael Valdes, the president, correct? President of Growth?
Chief Growth Officer.
Growth Officer. Yep. I mean, Chief Growth Officer with EXP Realty. And years and years and years of experience in the business as a whole. You were, was it Sotheby's you were with or Remax?
So I was with Realogy.
Realogy,
so it's all the brands, including Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Garden, and Corcoran.
Yep. That's right. It was funny because we were, I was at an event not too long ago with Michael, and this agent came up to him and said, I know you from somewhere. And they started going back and forth. And it was an agent from Mexico whenever Michael had opened up a office in Mexico, I think through Realogy at that time, right? Was that kind of the story? And then you hadn't seen each other in 10 years, but just ran into each other randomly. So that was good times. But anyways, the funny thing is, let me tell you the story how Michael. All right, let me tell you the story real quick about Michael and I and how our relationship has developed over the last year and a half or so, because this is something that I talk about a lot because, something that we talk about with our team, our immediate team, our organization, or any agents that I get in this ecosystem, because, we work with agents from all brands, all brokerages, all walks of life. And something that, a lot of people always make the comment that, man, you guys have really grown and scaled very quickly. And I will tell you, hands down, it is from events. It is from events. It is meeting the right people, being in the right rooms, and you gain access. If you're coming in a little bit late, please go on mute as soon as possible. That would be very nice. Thank you very much. And so, the thing is we talk about events and where most agents are not willing to make that investment because they look at the price of a plane ticket or the price of an event or the price of the hotel, and they attach a monetary value to that, which is usually too expensive, right? They don't look at the backside of that. They don't look at what could come of that. They don't look at the monetary gain or the relationship gain, which could lead to a monetary gain down the road. And so for us to get out and about on these events has allowed us access to people that, we would be very difficult to get a hold of. First of all, Michael does not volunteer his time randomly, a lot. He's got a lot going on. When you're running a global organization, there's a lot to do. But one thing I know is important to him as well is getting to events. And so what happened over the last year and a half or so is Michael and I became gym buddies because we were always at the gym at the hotel in these conferences at 5 a.m. I've talked about this before as far as maintaining a schedule as much as possible. And so whenever I travel or go on gyms as well, one of the first things I do is I get up and I go to the gym. I got to get a workout in. And so what's funny is there would be Michael. And it's not that we ever coordinated, just we started showing up at a lot of the same conferences, and not even brokerage related, but you run into these conferences like Inman or other real estate conferences where Michael has a presence or he may be speaking. And, I think it's something that, someone in his position of leadership, takes note of that as far as, they're wondering, right? A lot of agents will go to these meetings. If you can go on mute, please. Let me see. We got a hot mic. If people go on these meetings, a lot of times it's their chance to get out and party and have a good time. and they don't get up in the morning and they sleep in or they miss some of the meetings. But for me, it's an opportunity to get there to learn. And so we've developed this, I call it the gym relationship in the beginning because we just always saw each other there in the morning. And Michael, you wouldn't tell it, but he's a little bit older, but still looking young and fresh. And I think you're biologically 10 years younger. Is that what your Viome test said, right?
Yes, it was. Thank God for that. That's that 5 a.m.s at the gym.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the thing is, I don't know. I couldn't even keep count of the amount of conferences, probably at least 6 or 7 that I've probably run into Michael over the last year and a half. And so our relationship has just developed from there. And, Michael has introduced me to very important people and people that I probably wouldn't have access to. And if I just tried to call on the phone or send an email to, I would probably get shoved off in the stack, with all the other requests that come in. But whenever you're in that proximity, and I'll just use Inman as a very simple example, because Inman, not only the relationships that Michael introduced me there, but a lot of you saw in my stories or on my post about ringing the NASDAQ bell with EXP. That was an invite from Michael. And because we were at an event before that in the gym, and Michael's like, "Hey, are you going to Inman?" I was like, "Yeah, I am going to Inman. Actually, we're speaking there." And he goes, "Man, that's really cool. Hey, we're ringing the bell." I had no idea, had no clue. And he's like, "We're ringing the bell. Let me see if I can get you in." And it was just a simple offer like that was, something that I would never even fathomed the opportunity of, getting that opportunity. I just had never even thought about it. And so that came about, and I got on the floor. Now I was kind of crammed off in the back, so you won't really see me in a lot of the pictures, because everybody rushed to get front and center, which I was like, that's cool. I was just happy to be there. But it was a great experience, and got to spend some time, with Glenn Sanford, the founder and CEO, as well, some one-on-one time. But when I had a question and I needed a connection, I went to Michael and I said, "Hey, who do you know that might be able to help me out with this situation?" And he immediately took me to the direct person that is the decision maker on that. And so that's leading to more and more opportunity. And it's not just from Michael. This has happened over and over again at these events. So I just wanted to kind of tell that story. And, thank you, Michael, again, for coming on today and sharing your time and expertise with us. But also, I appreciate you just, developing that relationship and being open to agents, especially the ones you see showing up over and over again. So let me start off with the first question and ask you,
But wait, before you ask a question, I want to jump in, because you've been really kind with a lot of that introduction. And I've got to tell you, it's because of who you are. It's because of what you bring to the table that it's my pleasure and honor to help and support you, because you're helping so many people. Look at all the folks that are on this call today, and all the lives that everyone here is really affecting. So it's really a ripple effect that we're all doing. And I've heard your story, and your story is incredibly encouraging. And I wanted your story to get out there, and I wanted to support you in that, because that's how you support others. So I just wanted to sort of thank you for who you are and what you're doing for others.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Allow me to take a quick break to remind you that we have very important links in the description below. If you want the full story of how we closed over $1 million in commissions our first year and over $2.3 million in commissions our second year, check out the first link. Also, you have the link to our #1 Amazon best-selling book, Passive Prospecting. Last, if you enjoy this podcast and you're a giving person, leave a 5-star review, please. Now back to the episode. So I wanted to just start off with asking, is there any more in your background you wanted to share or want people to know? And then also, if we could transition to, since we were talking about conferences, what have conferences meant for you in your career? Because I'm sure you've been to hundreds of them, if not thousands.
Well, yes. So just for anyone who doesn't know me, so I'm Michael Valdes. I'm the Chief Growth Officer for EXP. I joined EXP in May of 2020, right in the heart of the pandemic. And I joined as president of EXP Global. And my team and I helped expand the EXP brand from the 3 countries that EXP was in, which was Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia, to 24 countries. So we expanded 20 countries in 2 years without ever getting on a plane, and starting in the middle of a pandemic. So it's never been done in our industry. Prior to that, I was the senior vice president of Realogy. So I handled all of the global expansion for all 6 Realogy brands, which was Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Garden, and Corcoran. And so that was roughly about 113 countries, over 300,000 agents collectively with Realogy. And then I met Glenn probably about 3 years ago now. I met Glenn at Inman. And it was 3 years ago. So I had met Jason first, Jason Gessing. Jason Gessing and I were on a panel for global real estate probably a month before Inman in 2019. And so we had a great sort of kinship that happened. I'd never met Jason before, and we went out for coffee, and the whole conversation was on global. And Jason says to me, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, could we ever have a conversation on an EXP Global? And so I sort of said, sure, I'll talk to anybody. And so we ended up having what was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting with Glenn, ended up being almost a 3-hour meeting, as we're just exploring. And I just really loved the idea of what EXP was doing and the disruption they were causing in our industry. And then I came over. So it's been an incredible run. And it's really been a great story of our growth and the story that this has done across the globe. And the idea that what the EXP vision and concept truly was able to transpire and transform into what is now 12 languages and 24 countries around the globe. And the last country we opened was Dubai in December of last year. And everything is just going so strongly. I mean, in the United Kingdom, we are the 4th largest estate agency in the country. In South Africa, we're the 9th largest out of more than 5,000 estate agencies. So to sort of think about the growth that we've had in such a short period of time is really phenomenal. And it's just the idea of this resonating across the globe. But Levi, you were asking about conferences. So yeah, I've done endless number of conferences. I can't even sort of tell you if that was what that was and what that number was. But I try to go out as much as I can to support agents as much as possible. And so I probably do 2 to 3 events a month now. And that's really sort of in-person events, not counting this, not counting my podcast, not counting a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's just sort of trying to be really visible for the agents. Next month in March, we'll be at the regional rallies. So I'll be at the Detroit regional rally, and then we'll be in Cabo for Brent Gove's event.
Oh yeah, I'll see you there in Cabo for sure.
Yes, you will, at the gym at 5 a.m.
Yeah, of course. Well, that one's a little spotty, right? It usually
yeah, that's more run on the beach at 6.
Yeah, there you go. That's more of a 6 a.m. at least, 6, 7.
That's right.
That's awesome. So that's a great thing. Again, Michael's always out and about. Detroit regional rally. We've got one coming up here in Dallas, March 21st. Yes. March 21st is the one. Well, it's actually in Fort Worth, so that is different from Dallas. But anyways, yeah.
So I've been told.
Yeah. You've got your pulse on everything, and it's funny you mentioned you did all that without getting on a plane. So back when you were with Realogy, you used to do this, but on a plane, right? That's why you met that person in Mexico 10 years ago, because you used to just travel to every single location to have to open up a brokerage, right? I
was doing 200 days traveling when I was with Realogy every single year at least 250,000 miles on American.
Wow.
They love me.
Oh yeah. You're like, You're like the George Clooney in that movie Up in the Air. Whenever
I've got 4.5 million miles with American Airlines. Yes. And no lie.
All right. Well, hey, if you got any companion tickets, let me know. I'll be
there. You go. That's exactly it.
So good. So I wanted to get your take on it, since you've got a pulse on not just the US, but the global market as well. But, kind of what do you see right now for real estate in 2023? What would you say your overall look is? And then also do you see this trending in a positive manner, in a negative? Of course, everything we see on the news right now, especially on YouTube, which we talk a lot about YouTube. Every thumbnail on YouTube has fire and brimstone, and things exploding and houses sinking in the ocean and things like that. So what are you looking at from the global perspective, but also in the US for 2023?
Look, we were all preparing for what was going to be a very, very tough year. And I think that we were all looking at what was NAR projections of a 30% decrease of transactions. And so, we were really preparing for that in a lot of ways, looking at what we could do to ensure that we could sustain that as a publicly traded company. And so I'm happy to report that at January close numbers, I can't disclose anything fully because we haven't reported yet, but our January numbers, I'll give you an example. Internationally, we actually surpassed what our forecast was for January. And when we start looking at US numbers, they were still very, very strong when we were looking at things. So January actually wasn't as bad as we expected it to be. Now, hopefully that's the trajectory that continues to go. Anecdotally, we had seen there was a pause in the market, probably between, towards the end of the year and the beginning of this, but it looks as though transactions are starting to occur again, especially in major cities. I live in Miami and New York. I am a very active buyer in real estate. I have actually purchased 2 properties this month myself, and it's before I actually wasn't willing to participate in a bidding war, knowing what values should have been. Values in at least my cities have started to get to, I wouldn't say pre-COVID prices, but I would probably say just a little bit of an uptick above that, but more realistic prices. You see things that were on the market longer, you were sort of seeing price decreases, but what you're sort of seeing was the market trying to understand what it was and the buyer demand and people that were in cash waiting to see what that market was going to level off at. I think we're sort of like at that period of time now where people are comfortable enough on both parts of that equation, where we're seeing transactions start again in a good way. And that's a strong indicator of where we are. Interest rates went down a bit, and so it's starting to normalize as well. So I'm actually very bullish for this year, especially what we're seeing thus far in the first 2 weeks of the calendar year.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, that was something that we have seen locally here in Dallas. Is the first 2 weeks of January very quiet, and then all of a sudden the last 2 weeks of January we did very well. Did better than what we were suspecting, and then so that's helped out for February. And 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 being in Miami, I know you split time between Miami and New York, but those are 2 markets that are always seen as being way overvalued quickly, and then also experiencing the biggest crashes, right?
Miami especially. New York is more constant because of the different sectors that are housed in New York, like the financial industry and things like that, and fashion and others. But Miami is actually one where, a lot of the East Coast folks have actually, moved to Miami, and it does have the advantage, Florida as being one of the 7 tax-free states. And so there was a mass exodus of people moving into those states, obviously Texas being one of those as well. And so we've seen a lot of movement in those particular states. It's good to hear what's happening in Dallas as well. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's good. So doing better than expected. Let me see. And then also, now that you mentioned you're an active investor as well, so you've bought properties. That's funny because we're actually locking up a couple of properties on top of that, and you can get some amazing deals right now, right? There's some you can get some concessions and some buy down rate opportunities. Do you mind if I ask which markets you recently purchased in? Are you purchasing close to home? Or are you?
So I purchased another property in Miami, and I'm closing on a property in Tulum.
Oh yeah. Oh, Tulum. Very nice. Yeah. That's right. That one.
I'm going to have a lot of friends soon.
Yeah. Oh,
A lot
yeah.
of
Hey,
friends.
just remember who your gym friend was
That's right. Exactly.
before Tulum came around.
That's right.
That's awesome. Well, I think we discussed too. I've got property in Belize, so we're practically neighbors.
Yeah.
Now. We're neighbors.
I know.
So, and you can
Just a
drive.
helicopter ride over.
Yeah, helicopter. Well, yeah, because mine's on the island. You can't get to Mexico from that standpoint, but you can from the mainland. If you go from the mainland, I believe Tulum's about a 4-hour drive from Belize City. But we'll see. That could be a very adventurous couple of weeks in the summertime sometime,
There you go.
I love it. So now, I mean, let's touch on that as well. You're buying property. We know we've got several clients also back in the market now buying property. So what do you say for the agents? And by the way, if you're on this call, we're here for you guys. So drop your questions in the chat because this is your opportunity to ask them. So if you have any questions, we'll get to those. But also, how do you make that decision? What are you seeing overall as far as interest rates? What is your thought process on that? Because a lot of agents are struggling with that conversation right now with their clients on interest rates, and they're letting them hold that back. But, we know that people are buying and selling homes every single day regardless. So what has that been for your thought process? And what do you think would help agents as well on this, on the rate fluctuation discussion?
It depends on what you're purchasing for and why. For example, Tulum is just an investment property, and my ROI in Tulum is probably about 17%, which is sort of ridiculous. And my interest rates are actually higher in Mexico as a foreign national. So I actually have a 10% interest rate, and I'm less concerned about that. So if I'm net positive, I don't care what the interest rate is. You have to look at your numbers, and interest rate is just one of the terms, right? I mean, are you looking to sort of look at this to flip? Look at where the interest rates have been historically, right? A year ago, we were at half of what these interest rates are. So interest rates are cyclical. Real estate is cyclical. So when we start looking at, I mean, would you not buy the same property you were looking at that might be $250,000 cheaper now because interest rates went up 3%? I mean, it's sort of like you really have to do the math as to what your net result is and what your hold period is. You have to look at all the factors that are involved in any real estate transaction. If you're looking at holding on to this for a year and flipping, interest rates might be more of an issue for you than not in a consideration. But if you're looking at something where you're holding for 2 years plus, you're going to know that there's going to be another cycle to interest rates. Interest rates are also going to be very sensitive to politics. We have a new election coming up next year, and so we have to think about that as well. So there's a lot of factors that are involved there, and your conversation needs to turn much more global and macro in nature, so that when you're really talking to a client, they're looking at you as the expert. So you need to understand what interest rates mean. You need to understand where that global landscape is. You guys might be in very major cities, right? Things like Dallas, New York, Miami have a huge international onset of buyers. So whatever country they're coming from, you have to understand the reasons that they're looking to diversify their portfolio, because then you're much more valuable to them. You're valuable to them in that conversation. They're paying you, 3% or 6% if you're double-ended, and they're paying you that for advice. They're paying you that for truly being that trusted advisor in their transaction, right? Anyone can get the majority of the information that they need on the internet. They don't need us for that. They need us to understand what they can't get on the internet. Levi has created a career by really sort of showing somebody what the lifestyle is in Dallas. It's not about sort of like, here's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Dallas that's, $1 million. I can find that out myself. What's that going to be? What's my lifestyle going to be when I'm there? Right? That's the conversation that we need to sort of change to. And if there's a larger conversation of somebody who is sensitive with pricing, then we need to understand what that effect is truly going to be and how we have that conversation with somebody so that we actually add value to that conversation.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And we talk about that in making videos. That it's funny because we say, well, yeah, why are the videos so popular? Well, people can go on an iBuyer platform and look at a house, the inside and out and the price all day long. But what they can't see really is the house next door, the house across the street, the playground down the street, the community pool. I mean, they can see some of that stuff in pictures too, but it doesn't really give them the full feeling, especially those people you mentioned coming from all of the outside areas. And if you're anywhere in the Sun Belt, the Bible Belt, whatever it is you want to call that, the Southeast, these areas that are a little bit more, freedom friendly tax, although, California is not doing bad. I mean, they're still having some really good numbers there. New York, I mean, still holding strong as well. You see Miami, of course, being in Florida helps out quite a bit, although we've known they've had some big increases and big decreases in the past, still holding steady. I think the other big factor right now is that the reason we're not seeing the big crashes that everyone predicted. I mean, there's so much equity right now in the US. I mean, it's crazy whenever you look at the stats on that. But I think going back to Michael's point, very, very important to help people understand the math behind it. First of all, you have to understand why they are reaching out in the first place and why are they reaching out. And that's why we always talk about that on our videos as well. Is if you have questions or thinking about, making this move, you have to give us a call because we have to customize that conversation to you. And when we do live streams, people will ask us very point blank questions in the chat. What's the best neighborhood? When we're on a live stream, and we always say, well, look, that's tough to answer because we don't know you. So what we advise is just give us a call tomorrow and we'll touch base. And that generates a lot of phone calls when we do those live streams because that people are kind of looking for just, black and white answers, but that's not really the case because everybody's situation is different. And I'm looking at a property right now as well. And I just made the decision this morning to pull the trigger on it because once I did the math on it makes sense. It just makes sense. Yeah. So what else? Let me see. Okay, let's see. Let's go with, I got a question. I've got a couple more for you, but let's jump in here with Carla. She said she would like to know what foundation I should have in place to prepare for the, oh, okay. Well, that's more of a YouTube question. So if we can have any more questions related to Michael and his experience overall from looking at global markets and where real estate is going, that's what I would like to focus the questions on a little bit more towards. I talk about YouTube all the time in all the other calls. So let's this is for you guys on general real estate questions as far as going that route. So let me ask you this then. So what else should agents look out for in this year? I mean, what are you seeing if we look at the basics as far as helping them get back into it, now that we know people are going to be coming back to the market right now? What would you see would be some of their best opportunities to prepare for this?
I think that with a lot of the real estate professionals that got into the business in the last few years, they never saw a shift in the market. They never had to ask for a price reduction. They only sort of knew how to take orders. You got a new listing in the morning, by lunchtime, you had 4 offers on it. And so the market shifted a bit, right? So now you actually have to hone your skills. You have to actually be there for the client in a different way. You actually have to be that advisor. One of the things that I actually always sort of tell people, if you were in that market and you were either lucky enough to be representing that seller and had the multiple offer situation, or you were representing a buyer and putting in infinite amount of offers, how many times did you get a call back from that listing agent and said, I'm sorry, your offer wasn't accepted? But I can tell you, I got 0 calls, and I probably put in maybe 20 offers in the last 2 years of different properties at different price points and things like that. I never, ever got a call back from anyone sort of saying you got outbid, you got this, it went another way. And so what happens now is that your relationship in the community is now sort of faltered, right? Because it wasn't just the common courtesy of going to your colleagues, not just your EXP colleagues, your colleagues in the industry. And these are people that are going to bring you your next buyer, right? And now the people that, maybe your offers are not coming in as strong, all of those other agents might still be the ones that are working with these buyers. And so now you have to repair a relationship because they're going to remember you never call them back. And so we need to come back to basics. We need to come back to the basics of running your business. And you have to also come back to the idea of creating your business plan. I'm a huge proponent on business plans. And I always sort of say success is a math equation. You want to make $1 million at the end of the year? Great. Figure out what your average commission is. Figure out how much